and then 2 women strike a deal. Let us do this. We are going to eat my child today, and then tomorrow we'll eat your child. When we say something like this, young men may not understand, but the mother who bore this child will know that if anything has come to the point where you will ever think of eating a child, it means that circumstances has gone severe. This was the situation in Israel, and they negotiated to eat a child, and then after they ate the first day, probably the woman felt like, how do I submit my own child? I love this child. And that was what brought case. And they went to the king and cried out, say, "Oh king." Brethren, please listen to me. If you don't hear anything, hear this thing that I will say. They went to cry to the king to find solution to that problem. You know what the king said? The king said, "Where do you expect me to get help for this kind of problem?" Many a times, our generation has come to knock on our lives. Are you the one who God has embedded with grace for my help? Are you the one who we are trusting God to become a solution for me? There are people scattered in the business arena. There are people scattered in the schools. There are people scattered in the working arena. There are people scattered everywhere. And the generation is always crying, who will help our situation? It's so unfortunate that many of us, we are as handicapped as this king. The king didn't have what it did to solve this delicate problem that was facing the nation, until they went and called Elijah. And Elijah said, by this time tomorrow, everything will become as cheap as you never expected it to be. Now, that's not a story I want to maintain. Now, but the burden that God gave me today is a very simple burden, and we are almost coming to the point of prayer. While I was praying, God was bringing things to my heart. One of the things I remembered that came as a flash. I remember some years ago, a sister called me and he said, "Sir," I said, "What is it?" He said, "While I was in school, I was on fire for God. While I was in school, anything that is a problem, they will always come under my umbrella to solve that situation." He said, "But since I married, I have become a shadow of myself." I saw that woman again while I was praying, and I was like, "God, you will be speaking to somebody in this meeting." That's the essence of that vision that came. There are many of us, before you married, you were on fire. There are many of us, before certain things happened to you, you loved God. There are many of us, the enemy has enclosed us into a bottle that it is becoming very difficult for us to find expression again. The Israelites, they were locked into the city. Nobody could go out. Nobody can come out. None could go out. None could come in. None of them. Oh, sometimes the enemy tricks us with this kind of situation. The Lord flashed in my mind again. The year I invited, there's this prostitute I invited in my church. Not in a church service like this. I wanted to see her on a one-on-one basis, and she came. And I spoke the word of God to her. I noticed she was willing to change. But the problem is that if she says she wants to follow God, the enemy has knocked off finance from her, such that it will be difficult for survival. So while she wept, while she cried that she don't want to toe this line again, I noticed she traveled to the village, probably to go and look for ends meet. And when it didn't happen, to my surprise, we went for prostitute evangelism that day, and I saw her in that quarter again. I was bitter in my heart. Now the problem will not be because she is not willing, even though there is a point where somebody should come and say, "If I die, let me die." If it is like the leper said, if it is poverty that will kill me, for me to fulfill purpose, for me not to waste my life, it is far better. But I noticed that the enemy made the system so tough for her that it will be difficult for her to come out from that situation. Oh, while I reflected on the meeting this morning, the Lord was just pouring out things to me, and I'm just hitting them, and then we'll just say a very short prayer and we close. I remember another day we went there. I met one, and that one told me, he says, "Sir, nobody wants to do this kind of work who is in her right senses. It is circumstances that have pressed us into this situation." And she says she is trying her best to raise money in order to come out. But being somebody who understands what the enemy does to people, I know that Satan cannot allow her come out by allowing her raise money. So I told her, be frank with me. Since you have been attempting raising money, how much have you really raised to come out from this work? And she was very quiet. She says, sir, nothing. I say, I know. Because when the enemy wants to close a man into his web, he doesn't give you chance for freedom. That's why the prayer is, why sit we here till we die?